The Haynies were a family of 7 and had moved to Grantsville, Utah in 2010. The family consisted of mother Consuelo Alejandra Haynie, 52, father Colin Jeffrey Haynie, 50, and the couple's 5 children, Colin Jeffrey Haynie, 16, who also goes by Jeffrey or CJ, Alexis Haynie, 15, Matthew Haynie, 14, and Milan Haynie, 12. They also have an adult son named Danny Haynie, who is away at college. The family was deeply religious and very active on social media. They were described by neighbors and friends as kind and giving. But 4 members of the Haynie family will soon lose their lives by the hands of one of their own. CJ was a sophomore at Grantsville High School, and while attending school, he was bullied and suffered with severe anxiety. CJ began having dark thoughts and talked with his mom, Consuelo, about some problems he was having, and she asked him if he wanted to go to therapy. But his father, Colin, refused. Colin stated that he didn't want to send his son to therapy. Words he would later go on to regret speaking. On the morning of Friday, January 17, 2020, CJ stayed home from school and decided while everyone was away for the day to do the unthinkable. Sometime that morning, CJ made the decision to take his family's lives as they returned home that day. He then went and retrieved his father Colin's handgun and waited. CJ began the annihilation around 1 p.m. when Consuelo and Milan returned home from school. He shot them both multiple times in their heads, necks, and upper bodies. At 2 p.m., when Alexis arrived home from school, she was shot multiple times in her head and upper body. Then, 3 hours later, around 5:15 p.m., shortly after arriving home, Matthew was shot once in the head. Finally, Colin Haynie arrived home a short time after 6 p.m. and was also shot by CJ, but in the leg. He then began to struggle with CJ over the gun before being hit over the head. Colin was eventually able to get the gun away from CJ when a neighbor, unaware of the tragic events, happened to stop by the house to return something they previously borrowed, when Colin asked the neighbor to drive them both to the hospital. The neighbor agreed, and while on the way to the hospital, CJ told his neighbor he'd killed his family, prompting the neighbor to call 911. During the call, CJ could be heard by dispatch confessing to the murders. When police arrived at the hospital, they noted that CJ was calm but not cooperative with them, and he was arrested. Upon investigating the crime scene, evidence suggested that each family member had been shot soon after arriving home. Police confiscated and examined CJ's laptop and phone, hoping to find a motive. On Wednesday, January 22, 2020, Colin Jeffrey Haynie was charged as an adult with 4 counts of aggravated murder, 1 count of attempted aggravated murder, and 5 counts of discharge of a firearm. But despite being charged as an adult while awaiting trial for the next 3.5 years, CJ will be held at the Salt Lake Valley Youth Center. The funerals took place on Friday, January 24, 2020. The victim's mother, Consuelo Alejandra Haynie, was raised in Chihuahua, Mexico, and described as a loving mother who loves to cook and garden. She will also help out people in the ward and in the community. Alexis Haynie was a freshman and also attended Grantsville High School, where she played on the junior varsity soccer team as a goalkeeper. Alexis was also an accomplished artist and loved playing the piano. She also liked Lord of the Rings and playing with her siblings and friends. Matthew Haynie was an 8th grader at Excelsior Junior High School and enjoyed soccer, wrestling, playing chess, and Star Wars. Milan Haynie was a 7th grader who also attended Excelsior Junior High School with Matthew. She also enjoyed playing soccer as well as volleyball, and she enjoyed making art with her sister and took a special interest in superheroes and would leave loving and encouraging notes for her family. 3 years later, Father Colin Haynie arrived to court for CJ's sentencing, but declined to make a statement. Then the Haynie's only other living family member, the older brother, Danny Haynie, addressed the court via phone call. Danny explained that the family had seen red flags a month prior to the incident, when CJ had that dark conversation with his mom. Consuelo asked him if he wanted to go to therapy. Danny said, but his father, Colin, who refused to send his son to therapy because he, quote, didn't want him to say anything to the therapist that would make him end up in jail. Danny went on to say that he felt he lost everything that day, and had his brother gotten the help he needed, maybe this all could have been avoided. CJ gave a statement saying, quote, I can ask for forgiveness for my crimes and my mistakes. I want to make sure that people understand that my mistakes in the past are something I would not do again, and I have learned from what I have done, end quote. Nearly a year after pleading guilty to 4 counts of aggravated murder and 1 count of attempted murder, on Wednesday, July 12, 2023, 3rd District Court Judge Teresa Welch sentenced 20-year-old Colin Jeffrey Haynie to the maximum sentence of 25 years to life for each of the 5 counts, with 4 of the counts to run consecutively, totaling 100 years, with the last count running concurrent with the others. She also ordered him to pay $28,000 in restitution. As a result of a new Utah law, Colin Haynie is allowed to remain in a juvenile facility until the age of 25. If the Board of Pardons and Paroles deems it necessary, CJ will be moved to an adult facility sooner. CJ may be eligible for parole in 2088. If the Board of Pardons and Parole grants his release, Colin Jeffrey Haynie will be 84 years old.